Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London. You have come to London at a very exciting time. As you know, the 2012 Olympics finished recently and they were an outstanding success, not just for London and the UK, but for every country who took part. This was the 10th Olympics in which Saudi Arabia participated, and this was the largest delegation sent. Saudi Arabia made a historic Olympic record by having 2 female athletes in the team for the first time, along with 17 men playing for 5 different sports. The inclusion of these 2 female athletes has been described as a huge step, overturning deep-rooted opposition from those opposed to any public role for women. We understand that this inclusion was led by His Majesty the King, who has long been pushing for women to play a more active role in Saudi society. One of the highlights of the Olympics for me was watching the Saudi athlete Sara Attar participate in the women's 800 metres. Despite Sara finishing more than half a minute slower than her nearest competitor, hundreds of spectators stood and applauded her as she crossed the finishing line. When Sara was asked how she felt about competing, she replied, "I did it for my country." It is universally accepted that modern women in Saudi Arabia are a powerful group. They are well educated, hold respected positions in the labour force, and are remunerated fairly. Sara Al Saud is one such example of these women, and her achievements will be an inspiration to many more. I would now like to invite David Gary to deliver the supervisor's speech on behalf of Dr. Lewis, who unfortunately cannot be with us today.
Art has a huge impact on society. It has the ability to shape it by reflecting and criticising it. Societies and cultures have limits on what is acceptable behaviour and what is allowable by way of personal expression. Yet the arts remain a relatively free space in which to create more complicated forms of public interaction. The world is open to integration and to interpretation more than ever before. The effects that arts have on us as individuals and as a society is now reaching beyond the boundaries of any given culture. Art has taken on many different forms in today's world. With these new expressions, one can see the impact on it everywhere, on a day-to-day basis. When you walk down the street in a city and you look around you, the influences of art, both old and new, are visible everywhere. Whilst some of us may not see it, others will. This is why art is now no longer about a painting on a wall or a sculpture on a mantelpiece. It's about expressing ourselves in our own unique way. Art has shaped and inspired thousands of years of civilization. Through her enthusiasm, application and immersion in her work, Sara grasped this understanding. She understood the connection between the theory of art and the living of it. This became evident to me when Sara requested the module on the art of the Far East to be brought forward to coincide with the trip she was undertaking to that region, to give her the best opportunity to absorb and experience the area's art firsthand. This is a very rarely happens. Sara immersed herself on her programme on Islamic art and its influence on Western civilization. She highlighted the various influences of Islamic artistic endeavour from the 7th to the 18th century of Christian art. The two civilizations have regular relationships through diplomacy and trade that facilitated artistic exchanges the West devoured Islamic decorative art, which became highly valued imports to Europe throughout the Middle Ages. Islamic pottery was also highly prized and preferred to European wares because decoration was mostly ornamental. In the early centuries of Islam, the most important points of contact between the West and the Islamic world, from an artistic point of view, were southern Italy, Sicily, and the Iberian Peninsula. Sara's insight into the Islamic art was a result of delving into the early years of civilizations that preceded Islam. She studied primitive and artistic civilizations, along with the classical civilizations of the Mediterranean and early Christian art. For a young art historian, it is the foundation to understanding art throughout the centuries. And Sara clearly understands that art is a continuum. Sara's enthusiasm for her subject, however, reached its peak on her writings on the Renaissance. Her fascination for that period was palpable. Although art during the Renaissance was mostly made for commissions by the ruling classes and for religious reasons, contracts always stipulated that the painting must be made by the master's own hand and not by his assistants. This meant that this period produced some of the greatest works of art in human history. Sara made it her business as a budding art historian to go in person to the heart of Renaissance art, Florence and the Uffizi Gallery, and to see for herself and experience firsthand the majesty of that era. Sara's project for her degree required that she purchases 3 works of art by her favourite artists. Whilst most students would have gone the easy route and chosen 3 non-controversial, albeit well-known artists, Sara chose an eclectic mix of 3 works of very different styles. I was impressed by these choices, as these reflected a fertile imagination and cosmopolitan approach to art. Sara's choice of Jean Milli's photograph entitled Picasso at the Madura Pottery Workshop was due to her visit to Florence in her first year at the American University of London. Sara says that in this photograph she saw the ephemeral status of Picasso as a creator of art. I was perplexed by her choice of words, and particularly her reference to Picasso's artistic status as ephemeral and to the artist himself as infamous, and hoped very much that one day we were able to discuss this matter further in person. Sara's next choice was Frida Kahlo, and here I have no hesitation in saying how much I empathise with her choice. Sara wrote that Frida Kahlo has been an inspiration ever since she encountered Frida's work during her studies on surrealism. Kahlo said, "I paint myself because I am so often alone, and because I am the subject I know best." In the words of Sara, such feminine melancholy and singular female existence is a lifestyle familiar to so many women in Saudi Arabia, where patriarchy and cultural customs present a daily challenge to the expression and the preservation of the self. Frida Kahlo, in Sara's eyes, stands for all women, representing them as autonomous, creative subjects with their own points of view. Sara's most interesting choice, however, was that of the Saudi artist Abdul Nasser Khalem. I must confess I was not familiar with the artist myself, and I too researched him and was fascinated by what I found. Sara's assertion that art is flourishing in Saudi Arabia and that the country has a significant art scene is revealing and a great cause of optimism. In Sara's words, "I am proud of my religion, my country, and my heritage. I am fully aware of the limitations and shortcomings of Saudi art in comparison to modern Western societies. But I believe in change and modernization. and I believe that art is essential to the progress and future of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian art has been witnessing great improvement and diversity in recent years, and I believe it is time to recognise and see what Saudi artists have to offer. Sarah, you, as an art historian, are a bridge that connects two cultures in an ever-evolving world. We live in a global village, and our cultural intercourse is but one way of bringing civilizations together.
I would now like to invite Professor Michael Niemier, the President of the American University of London, to give a speech.
Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, members of the faculty, I'd like to start by welcoming you to this gathering, this commencement ceremony, as we say in America, for Sarah, who had just completed her BA degree in History of Art, summa cum laude. That is with a grade point average of 3.9 on a scale of 4.0. And you cannot get better than that. I am also not going to talk about Sarah. I think her supervisor's speech said it all. After all, her supervisor, Dr. Lewis, had worked with Sarah throughout the last 4 years and obviously got to know her academic ability very well. Through education, Sarah, a Saudi woman, has achieved a great deal. Contrary to common conception, education in Saudi Arabia is an area in which women have experienced significant progress. The Saudi government has gone to considerable effort to increase girls' access to education and to reduce the gender gap at different educational levels. Women's education has brought about a number of social developments in the country, such as an increase in female participation in the labor force. Over the past 40 years, the Saudi government has succeeded in building an educational infrastructure that has led to an increase in female participation by over 39% at all academic levels. In a recent survey conducted by UNESCO, 79% of respondents agreed strongly that women should have the same opportunities as men. 70% insisted that master's and doctorate levels are as suitable for women as they are for men. And surprisingly, 80% indicated that university education should be co-educational. Sarah, you can be proud of your achievement and for being in the avant-garde of these positive trends in your country. You will now be joining an illustrious list of distinguished achievers who are leaders in their field. Finally, I would like to wish you every success in your future choices. And please, always keep in touch with the university to acquaint us with your progress. Congratulations.